Summon.
Iran is just part of the threat. They have friends that are part of the UN, friends that say that they're voting with us, but at the same time they're voting with Iran. We've got to look at who's buying their products still. We can make Iran become isolated if we can isolate their friends too. It's important that we don't overlook Iran. They are definitely a threat.
All right, the next question, Rob Wallace. Please state your position on the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, and explain why.
You know, the Affordable Care Act is a symptom of exactly what's wrong in Washington. I didn't do that. It's exactly wrong with what's, or an indicator of what's wrong with Washington today. We passed the Affordable Care Act in the Congress by reaching out to big business and big insurance companies and listening to them about what was an appropriate approach to broader coverage of folks for health care. That's exactly the reverse of the way we should have approached the problem. We should have approached the problem from finding folks in the communities who did not have coverage to find out how we could cover them and take that coverage to business to bid it. Instead, as is often the case with the White House and the Congress today, we listen to lobbyists from K Street, we listen to folks who are slipping checks and making comments based on their lobbying activity to congressmen and to the president, and we built a bill that is way too expensive because we didn't lock in volume discounts for the government. It was exactly the opposite of the way the approach should have gone on, and that's why we got the bill that we got with the expense that we got.
First, we must repeal Obamacare. It is our number one threat to our economy. 90% of Oklahoma's economy is driven by small businesses. And I can tell you as a small business owner, that bill is going to cost me over $200,000 in a new tax. Now, where's the cutoff number here? For some reason, you're being successful because you have over 50 employees. And they're saying, since you have over 50 employees, now you can all of a sudden assume that you're going to get hit with another $100,000 tax. Well, what's the cutoff point? Is it going to be 51, 52, 53, 54, 55 employees, 60 employees? Because I can tell you as a business owner, as the company was growing and we were hitting 49, if I knew when I hired that 50th employee I was going to take on a $100,000 new tax a year, I'd have to really think my position. We must repeal Obamacare finally.
30 seconds on.
Well, the greatest threat to the economy today is the deficit. And we need to be making sure that we're focused directly upon the idea of shrinking the deficit and shrinking the debt so that we can get the government out of the way of the capital markets. The repeal of Obamacare is a great thing to talk about from a political standpoint, and until we structurally change the makeup of the Senate, cannot happen. So if we understand exactly how the Congress works, and we understand that it takes 60 votes in the Senate to repeal Obamacare, what we'll realize is the 33 votes that we've already taken to repeal Obamacare didn't get us there because we can't get it through the Senate. We've got to fix it, because repeal at this point is impossible.
All right, the next question is for Mark Wayne Mullen first. What is your position on earmarks for congressional districts, also known as pork barrel spending? Do you agree with Senator Coburn that bureaucrats should direct the allocated dollars, or with Senator Inhofe that Congress should direct projects to be funded from the allocated amounts?
The purpose of earmarks to begin with was for our infrastructure. And it was to allow the infrastructure to our states, to our local counties, to our government to be able to build the roads and the bridges. But what's happened is it's been hijacked by career politicians that's more interested in bringing in pet projects like the Bridge to Nowhere to fund their next election. What we have to make sure is that the dollars we spend in Congress is spent appropriately. Look, we're in debt. We have $16 trillion of debt. We have to figure out how to get out of debt before we can even be thinking about investing in other things right now. We must understand $16 trillion of debt only means our kids are going to have to pay that back. I don't want my kids to have to pay for our mistakes.
All right, rebuttal.
Well, earmarks are part of the problem in Congress. It's a system that's been put in place to allow certain amounts of money to be allocated to certain congressional districts based upon the politics that have been played inside the body. It's a good example of what I was talking about in my opening. We've created a political structure where scoring political points and towing the party line has a direct payoff to you. And that's to make sure that your pet project gets funded in your district. I think Senator Coburn has been very careful to make sure that we are attacking earmarks at their source. And that's at the members of Congress. We have to get spending under control to do something about the deficit and something about the debt. One of the ways we do that is we quit paying off members of Congress with projects in their district. Those projects need to be funded based on their merit, not based upon the politics that the individual members are playing.
30-second summary.
You know, I think a good thing would be is to be transparent. If you're going to throw an earmark out there, you ought to let everybody know you threw an earmark out there and know why. See, what happens a lot of times, a bill gets pushed in and they start adding this to it and says, if you'll allow this to be attached to the bill, then I'm going to vote for you on this bill. And what ends up happening is as Americans, we end up having to pay for it. Until they can fix the problem with earmarks, then I disagree with putting any of them on the bills.
We start with Rob Wallace with this question. Social Security and Medicare are a major concern for our mature generations. Please offer Please offer specifics about how you will strengthen Medicare and Social Security and give our viewers an outline of your plans.
Well, I appreciate the question, Cindy, because it's one of the places where you can see a real difference between my opponent and me. I have from the beginning said that Social Security is a promise that we made to our seniors, and that my mom and dad taught me that you keep promises. This government made a promise in the form of Social Security and Medicare, and we should keep it. I've never made a statement like we should get government out of Social Security. I've always consistently said that people have paid premiums for those insurance policies for the entire working life that they have given us, and we need to honor those insurance policies that they've purchased, both in the form of Social Security and Medicare. Let me be clear. I am against the privatization of Social Security. I am against turning Medicare into a voucher system. What we have to do to make those programs survive and have the ability to extend them is we have to deal with healthcare inflation, which means we have to fix the fact that you and I go to the emergency room with insurance and pay $12 for a Tylenol. We've got to fix that by covering more people and making it affordable.
Rebuttal.
First of all, Social Security and Medicare isn't an entitlement. It's a promise. The government made us a promise that said if we do this, they're going to do this. And what's ended up happening is they saw all this money sitting over the side and they thought, you know, we're not spending the money wisely, so we're going to go ahead and take more of it and write an IOU, and it's never been paid back. It could stand by itself, and it could be solvent, and it could be there for generations now and the generations behind us if we would, one, pay back the IOUs, get their hands out of it, and use it for what it was intended for. We have so many people that's on Social Security that never paid into Social Security. The way I understood it is that you had to pay into it before you received anything back. The way I understood it is before you could get Medicaid and Medicare, you had to pay into something before you get it back. And that's not what's happening. They're treating it like it's an entitlement. It's a promise, and we have to keep our promises.
Well, as a prosecutor, we ought to be identifying those people that are taking it that shouldn't take it. We ought to be putting them in prison. But secondly, what we've got to make sure we're doing is that we have enough people paying in to pay for the people who are drawing. It's not so much that we've issued these special securities, it's much more a fact that the baby boom is aging. And we have got to look at the actuarial situation with regard to the baby boom aging. I have never said we should get government out of Social Security. It's a government program in which we made a promise. It's a promise we must keep.
Right. This first question, Mark Wayne Mullen. According to the Pew Research Center, public concern over the debt and deficit, already extensive, is only likely to increase as the so-called fiscal cliff approaches at the end of the year. Yet among a dozen specific options for reducing the debt and deficit, only two win majority approval from the public: raising taxes on annual incomes over $250,000 and limiting corporate tax deductions. What will you do to address this issue if elected?
First of all, we shouldn't be raising taxes on anybody. I mean, the government's proved they're not responsible with the money we're sending up there, so why should we send them more?